Hi, all. Welcome to the Comic Con India Pop Culture Forum 2020, the digital edition brought to you by Maruti Suzuki Arena. As some of you may know, the Pop Culture Forum is our annual B2B conference that brings together the best and brightest in the pop culture industry, be it in publishing, retail, merchandising, gaming, entertainment. And it also plays host to the annual Comic Con India Industry Awards, celebrating the best in comics and pop culture in the country. Usually, this event is held live with an invite-only audience in Delhi. But owing to the pandemic, we now have an opportunity to do this digitally, and thanks to our partners at Maruti Suzuki Arena, we are now able to bring to everyone specially curated panels with some of the best talent out there in the country on our social media channels. As you'll scroll through the playlist, you'll see the other panels for this year, along with our interactions with the Comic Con India award winners, which is very exciting for us as well. Now on to the current panel, which is called Bringing Comics to Life. Over the past decade, we've seen a lot of pop culture fans come over to the comic book fandom owing to the success of many movie franchises. The Avengers Endgame franchise has proved to everyone, not just globally but in India, that film franchises are a great way of connecting with comic book stories and characters. In fact, now it is a given that the comic book, the physical book, is only one part of the journey, and going forward, many people will come on to liking these stories and characters through various mediums, be it television shows, movies, gaming, and even more. With that being a fact of life, the same is being attempted in India, where our boutique Indian comic book industry is trying to pitch and adapt a lot of their comic book stories and characters to live action. And owing to the OTT boom, which is really caught up in the pandemic, it has opened up a lot of doors for many of the creators and publishers out there. To talk about this and more, I have the founding team of Yali DreamWorks, which is an offshoot of Yali Dream Creations, a leading comic book publisher in the country, joining me. The founding team includes Asvin Srivatsangam and Vivek Rangachari. Both of them have successfully broken the glass ceiling and are some of the first publishers or creators of Indian comics to successfully pitch and sell the rights to their stories and characters for live action adaptation, not just on a OTT platform, but also as a full-fledged Indian film. In fact, which is now being helped by someone really popular in the Bollywood film industry. All of us in the community are obviously waiting with bated breath to see these projects come to life. But to talk about this and more, I'm going to have both of them join in and tell us about their journey so far, and also share some tips and tricks for a lot of the creators and publishers out there who would like to break the ceiling as well. Let me have them online. Thank you guys for coming on the Pop Culture Forum 2020, the digital edition. I'm so glad to speak to you both. As I was talking in our correspondence, it's very exciting to kind of learn about the updates that are happening around a lot of your projects, especially around the film and what you guys are planning to do with it. So I thought this would be a really fun panel. Aswin, let me get to you first, because before I go back into how you guys started, you mentioned in your email to me that you're no longer a comic book company, and that was very interesting. So tell me about this new avatar, and what are you guys doing at your end?
Right, absolutely. So we are not limiting ourselves just to comic book, but with Vivek, I have co-founded Vivek Rangachari, who's here, and we co-founded a company called Yali DreamWorks. It's registered in Mumbai, and it's going to facilitate the content that we create on the comic book medium to audiovisual adaptation. So it could be an OTT, or it could be a feature film. So that's the arrangement that we have, even for two of our products, which I'll talk to you about. One, so I'll come to that. So that's where we are, and think of it like Marvel Comics and Marvel Studios. It's in principle, it's like that.
So Vivek, what made you guys start a different commercial vehicle for this? Not do it through the existing company, and what was the reason behind it?
These sort of movies that we plan to make, be it in the OTT space or feature films, the genres and the type of movies are very different from what we were doing in the conventional sense of making films. So we thought that let's spin it off into a different venture, which concentrates on the superhero space, the genre of horror, supernatural thrillers, etc. Because that's a different space that we are looking at, and hence, and this collaboration that we had with Ashwin. So that was the reason why we decided to kind of spin it off into a different entity altogether to cater to a certain segment of the audience.
Okay. Okay, so going back a bit, Asvin, I'll start with you. Tell me about how did you create Yali Dream Creations, and tell us about the name as well. It's a very unique name.
Sure.
And, how did you guys go about, I mean, how did it all start?
How did it all start? Right? It probably started when I was 5 years old. I grew up in 3 countries. One of my early childhood started, my early childhood started in Brazil. So at that time, Hanna-Barbera cartoons and Supermans and everything was at the nascent stage. I was watching them, binge watching them, binge watching at that time on TV. After, and I would come back from school and watch them for hours. And I was a single child, so and that's where I got the initial attraction to this medium, right? The pop culture, the superhero. I would think I'm Superman. I still think I am. So and then I moved to India when I was 6 years old. Then my dad introduced me to Amachitrakatha. So it's one pop culture to Indian mythology. So at some point, right, I wanted to put these together, something like this. A comic book is something I always fascinated to create, the visual medium of storytelling. And initially I created a graphic novel called The Dynast. It's again another love story. I used to really be fascinated with big cats like lions, tigers, leopards. I knew at some point, the size, weight, which country you would find them and everything, all the details about there were 64 species of them. I used to know most of them, right? So I wanted to create a world, post, there's no mankind, these creatures have evolved. That was Dynast. And there is a person named Beric White who unifies all of these, different kinds of animals. So they think of it like He-Man meets Thundercats.
Okay.
When I did that, and then I followed up with Nilakshi, The Quest for Amrit. These were graphic novels that I created before Yali Dream Creations. So every time I created something, I was struggling to find a publisher. So that's when it dawned on me, why don't I become a publisher, And then the entity came, Yali Dream Creations. And the name Yali is, it's in our Hindu mythology, and it's a half lion, half elephant. And it's more predominant in southern India. It's a creature that's often found in the pillars of the temple. So it will be holding, the roof of the temple, and they usually show it with a mighty half elephant, half lion holding an elephant, this to show the might. And there is also another mythology. I think Vivek Goyal, he published a comic book, which, Lord Shiva, he took a form, Sarabeshwara. Sarabeshwara is Yali. And to cool down Vishnu, who had become Narasimha. So for me, the biggest attraction was, that form, right? The half elephant, half anamorphic form. So I thought that's something I can use. And the name itself, I thought I needed something easy to spell and easy to pronounce, because I live in this part of the world, when I want to tell someone, I don't want them, not be able to pronounce the word. So that's how Yali came, Yali Dream Creations, and I could have named it Yali Comics. But 6 years back or 7 years back, I always wanted to come to the audiovisual adaptation. I didn't know when and how, but that's something I wanted to do. So I didn't name it intentionally. I didn't name it Yali Comics. So that's the story of Yali.
And then Vivek, obviously you've started working with Asvin now, and with the new venture, which is around the film production.
Sure.
What attracted you to trying to adapt comic books and comic book stories into live adaptations, that too in India, which is not the easiest thing to sell?
Sure. So I got to know Ashwin a couple of years ago when Caravan, one of his properties, is something that I quite liked. I'd actually seen it in comic book Mumbai for the first time.
Yeah.
So unlike Ashwin, I of course grew up reading a few comic books, but I wasn't such a huge fan of comic books books and that medium. But having read Caravan, I felt that it lent itself to an audiovisual format. At the time, OTTs were not that big in that sense, so we were looking at a feature film. And we got talking, and then we kind of interacted, we met, and then we had a larger... having seen the evolution of Marvel Comics in DC and Hollywood, there was always the nagging feeling that going forward, maybe 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, comic book and this huge kind of canvas that's painted with regards to superheroes or genre films would become a norm. I could see youngsters reading a lot of comic books, most of them obviously from outside. And youngsters coming and watching the Marvel universe and movies out of that universe. We felt that this was going to be the future going forward, and I wanted to jump into this medium. Since Ashwin and me hit it off when we kind of spoke and then met, that kind of evolved into an association that with the creation of Yali DreamWorks about 6 odd months ago. And touch wood, things are going pretty fine. We've got a good pipeline of projects that we feel are pretty interesting. And we can't wait for the lockdown to end and start working on them, start producing them.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, I saw the update where I think Mr. Gupta is starting the scripting of it. And, it's kind of, yeah, I mean, I can imagine how it hampers how fast you can go to production. But sticking on this bit, I know there are other projects that you guys would be working on, but a lot of the stuff that you guys did at Yali Dreams, the comics also, they were not necessarily trying to be a superhero in the superhero genre. They were horror, they were thriller, they were, I wouldn't call them all contemporary, but they were kind of on themes which are adaptable to other spaces as well. Was that on purpose, or you were just going by, what stories you liked and, as you developed them with Shamik and all?
It's part planning. We thought, we didn't want to be outlandish in a sense. We wanted to create a story that's adaptable. What can be done in India, right? We didn't want to create a story that's like Star Wars, which cannot happen in India anytime soon with the kind of budget that we have. So I think there was some rationale when we started writing the story, creating the story, and what we show and what we are going to present is going to be eventually be adaptable. So that is sort of partly by plan and design. Okay. So I'll come to the project that everyone obviously knows about, and unfortunately, I remember Mr. Gupta was supposed to come, and you were also going to be there in Delhi, and anyone outside of Delhi was thinking things are going bad in Delhi, and they weren't. But unfortunately, that announcement didn't happen live at the show, but it was pretty exciting. I mean, Sanjay Gupta, I have grown up watching his films, and Karte was like this momentous film to watch. And obviously there are many others, and the Shootout series is also interesting. And then when I saw that he picked up Rakshak, which is a vigilante story, it kind of makes sense. Like, he's the right kind of guy to pick up a story which is heavy on crime as well and action at the same time. He has the connect on the Bollywood bit, so it is entertaining as well for people, because obviously you'll have to adapt it to work in India. How did this start? How did this whole project come about, and how did you end up meeting Mr. Gupta, and how far back was this? I don't know which parts to say. You're right about one thing though. Sanjay Gupta definitely is the right person to associate it on this project. He's the right person to helm it. The things that you already said are true. And how did it happen, right? So Shamik was involved in a project, another mega project.
Yeah,
he was working with the team, and I don't want to bring the names here, so it's still confidential. So that's where he met Sanjay Gupta, and Sanjay Gupta. I think Shamik presented to him the Rakshak comic book series, and it was in his desk for some time. And until I think one day, I think he read it, liked it, then he reached out to me. And I was wanting to do something else with it at that time, but then I took a little bit of time to get back to him, and finally I think things fell in place. And December, you're right, we were supposed to come to Delhi Comic Con and make an announcement. He couldn't fly down, and then eventually we did make an announcement. It came on Hindustan Times and a few other papers a couple of days after that.
Yeah. So Vivek, were you also part of this as well, structuring this as well?
Yes, I joined a little later. Ashwin had already started the conversation, and then when we founded Yali DreamWorks, then I got involved in it. It also helped because I'm in Mumbai, so it also helps meeting up with people and potential platforms and other people, studios, etc. So yes, I got involved a little later, but yeah, I think September last year I got into it, and we had the Comic Con in December. Yeah, we made the announcement then.
And I know, I mean, obviously, it's a little unfair to ask you guys what will be the timeline now, considering it's the pandemic. But when were you originally hoping to have the film come out?
Sometime 2021.
2021. Okay.
Yeah. End of this year, we were hoping to get it on the floors. Sanjay sir had a couple of other commitments that he had to finish, and we were hoping end of this year or early next year to start. And yeah, sometime mid next year for it to come.
And how's the experience been working with him, and also kind of, understanding how kind of Bollywood works and Indian films work, and, their timelines, their budgeting, and their sensibilities of what would work in the market?
It's been fantastic. It's been fantastic working with him on this, and as Ashwin rightly said, he's the right person to helm a project of this size, scale. He's worked with the biggest stars in Bollywood. I've been in the industry for some time now, so so I know the workings of Bollywood. So in that sense, Ashwin, I guess, is still getting used to it. But right now, as far as Rakshak is concerned, everything is kind of going very well, smoothly. Yeah, we are kind of interacting as I said. We are also working on other projects, so that is taking shape, and hopefully next year we'll have a few more. Later this year, and then next year we'll have something else kind of in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, can you talk about any of the other projects that you guys are planning to produce or co-produce with others? Any of you?
Ashwin, yeah, Ashwin.
You want?
No, you carry on. Yeah.
Okay. There are two other projects. One is The Village. That's our other horror graphic novel, which is set in rural Tamil Nadu, and we are working with an OTT platform, a known OTT platform with a really good first-time movie maker. Actually, he has made one movie before, so we are doing that. So papers are signed, and we are working on the screenplay for it. So that's all the information I can give you on that.
Okay.
And we're also in an early conversation for the Caravan with another OTT platform. We are looking at these two as a web series.
Okay. Aswin, this is totally for you. And this is going back to the comic bit. Obviously, your relationship with Shamik and his contribution creating a lot of the stories have been crucial in some of the projects. How has it been working with him, and what are you guys planning going ahead on the comic book side?
Shamik has been primary source of content creation, right? So many of our conversations in terms of naming the story, right? Rakshak. Initially it wasn't even called Rakshak. It was called Dank first, and then I didn't see an appeal to it. And then it struck to me that Rakshak could be the right name to name it. Although Rakshak, there was a movie, I think way back in 90s with Sunil Shetty in it. So, but then Rakshak is also a name that's pan-Indian. So I don't have to explain it to anyone in India. So what it means, So I had so many conversations with Shamik on creating a story, naming it, artwork, like it's all been a great journey. And Shamik and I are currently working on sequels for The Caravan, which is going to be called The Caravan Vengeance. Okay. We should have released it by now, but for the pandemic, we have the book ready, but we want to hold off. It's not worth taking the risk to go print and distribute now. So, and same thing with, we're doing the sequel for the Rakshak, A Hero Among Us. There's a sequel for it called Crackdown. So we got nearly one third of the book done. So maybe we could release it in 3 parts. Again, we're waiting for the pandemic to be done before we release. So those are 2 books that we are working with Shamik. And apart from that, we are working on a couple of interesting stories with 2 new writers. One for sure, that's going to be a comic book. We are doing the character design. We may make an official announcement on Yali Facebook page once we got the character sketches done, we'll be ready to say, hey, what is the story about? What is the premise, and what's and who's going to be associated with it?
Okay, so sticking to the comic book bit, is this now that you have a venture and you're successfully trying to produce other projects? Do you think it'll all be about trying to create something which could be easily adapted, or would it stick to the core comic book bit, which is more about making the books and then whatever happens later happens?
I think we'll have to still be picky about making how, because again, we're all prisoners of time, right? So we can only do so much given the time. So if there's a priority, I definitely would continue creating what is adaptable, right? Again, even what we think is adaptable does not necessarily mean it would get greenlit.
Fair enough.
It may get greenlit now, it may get greenlit after 5 years, or it may not happen too. So, but at least I want to create the chance, that opportunity for it to be greenlit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you've been supporting and running Yali from the US while also having a job.
Yes.
Do you see that transition happening where you'll full-time be just doing Yali and you'll probably maybe move back to India?
I would have wanted to happen many years back. I'm still have a day job. In fact, I have a meeting right after this. so I would, that's a question that I've been asking myself. I've been wanting to do this. Who knows? It could happen in this year or the next year. But for the pandemic period, I would be talking to you full time with Yali.
Okay. This is a question for both of you, and you can choose who goes first. What you guys have done and what you're successfully doing is proving that, for at least for the comics industry in India, that if you put out a good story, there is ways of, obviously, I mean, the reality of comics in India and probably everywhere around the world is that you solely cannot just survive on publishing the book and just living with that, especially in India because of the way the distribution and retail is. And obviously, no one consumes stories and characters only by the book anymore. In fact, if you guys been to the Comic-Con in India, everyone attending there, a lot of people are coming from the movies or the TV shows. They're not necessarily coming from the book element of it. But what you guys are doing is a breakthrough for the industry. What tips would you give to other publishers and creators out there? Obviously, you've said be strategic about how to create the projects so that at least it gives you windows into other areas. But what tips would you go about how to pitch your project and also sell it, especially in the negotiation bit, because that's obviously tricky. Both of you. Asvin, if you can start, and then we can go to Vivek.
Right. I mean, firstly, I'm sitting outside the country of business, so for me, coordination of time and everything has been a hassle. But thanks to the internet, right, Facebook and WhatsApps, I'm able to coordinate with people. Dropbox is where we do file sharing. You don't have to sit in the same office. So we were working virtual even before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, and that said, yes, strategy is important. What you're creating, is important. At the same time, think out of the box, right? Think about a story that is not not there, So, and you don't want to create something which has already been seen so many times, it's done to death.
Yeah.
So think out of the box. At the same time, your story, what you're creating, necessarily shouldn't be dependent on a huge budget and scale. There should be an interesting story. It can be told even without just an interesting story. It doesn't have to depend on a spaceship.
Yeah.
So on a huge set, it does everything that you create is not Bahubali or Star Wars. So but at the same time, don't limit yourself. Be creative. And about strategy, right? I think Vivek knows his journey, like how long we've been knocking this door for some time. 2016 is when it started. It's all started. We had initially optioned Caravan to a known actor's production house, and it lapsed after 2 years. And since then, I've been making trips to India, I would connect with them on Facebook, WhatsApp, and other medium. Send out pictures, and then, eventually, and then, of course, thanks to the presence of Vivek in both being in Mumbai as well as being associated with Yali, I think it will be a lot smoother from now on. So, Vivek, I want you to take it from here.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said that you need to be, the concepts need to be out of the box, interesting. I always tell Ashwin that whatever ideas that Ashwin normally gets on his Facebook page, people reach out to him. If it's an idea that can be kind of told in one sentence and it catches your imagination, I think we are there, halfway there. Rest of it is kind of getting the things together. But that elevator pitch becomes important, especially in today's world where there's a lot of material. We are kind of overburdened with so many, there's so much of people, talented people out there who are pitching a lot of stuff. There's only that much of mind space that you have, and you need to kind of stand out. So that becomes extremely important. Anything that stands out, anything that you can say in 10 lines that gets 10 words that can get somebody really hooked onto it or interested, then you're there. And also regarding the budget, given that it's a nascent sort of a space that we are getting into, the Bollywood budgets are increasing for sure. Also, we don't know what the pandemic, how it will impact the film industry, at least for the next 2-3 years, whether people will be spending that much of money to go to theaters, whether they'll have the confidence to go to theaters or they'll wait and watch and let the movies come in and watch it on Netflix and Amazons of the world. We don't know yet how it will kind of space out. But budget is important. We need to tell the story smartly without kind of having to break the bank in terms of telling the story visually. So I think these are two things which are important. Standing out with respect to so much of material that is out there, and also making sure that the story is well told and you don't have to kind of spend too much to kind of bring it on screen.
So being strategic about what you're planning, having a good elevator pitch so that you stand out in the crowd. The other thing, I mean, what would you suggest in terms of protecting your copyright? I mean, protecting your stories. Is there anything that you guys would recommend for publishers and creators out there? Because obviously stories are so easy to be subjectively copied or, changed.
Sure. It's a very good question. So, I've been lucky. Publishing the book itself protects yourself, your rights. Because it's published material, so it's out there. You can contest, need be, right? But then so far, I met good people who haven't tried to, twist my arm or cheat me. But yeah, Vivek, go ahead. I don't know if you had any stories of content that being taken.
I think that's right. Once you publish something, it's already under the copyright. But if you want to kind of adapt it to the audiovisual medium, I think it's good to have the story kind of registered in the SWA, the Screenwriters Association. It just helps. Also, because it has a lot of characters in it, I think trademarking it with the Copyright Board of India in Delhi, that becomes important. It's a long process that takes about nearly a year, I believe, 6 months to 1 year. But at least having that process, I think it's important. These are the ways, but as Ashwin rightly said, once you get it out there, you're automatically protected.
For sure. In terms of when you're developing projects, what would be some key tips in trying to negotiate with either OTT platforms or producers out there? I mean, anything that, since you guys have been doing it for a bit now, anything that you've picked up that you might want to share?
Vivek, you want to take it?
We've been at it for a couple of years, but for us also it's a learning experience in terms of negotiating with studios, with producers, with OTTs. So it's a learning experience for us too. But I think we should be honest and kind of truthful to the material that we have, the sort of association or sort of commercial that you believe that you deserve in terms of the value for a particular IP that's been created, the budget that is required to tell that story. We need to be honest about it. We should cut corners. We should kind of, if a particular property requires a certain amount of budget, then it requires. If you cut corners, then the product that comes out would be substandard in that sense. So I think those are things that being upfront about what is your expectation, I think is a good place to start with. Okay. And of course, rest of the thing, there's always commercial consideration. You'll have to go halfway there. There's always an adjustment that you have to make. But as I said, being honest of your work and your expectations is a good point to start with. And we are also learning as we kind of negotiate with different entities. Yeah. So,
this is for both of you again. Obviously, there is what you created, and then there will be something that you'll adapt. What is that fine line between sticking to what you creatively liked and adapting and being flexible on how to tweak or change stories, be it for budget constraints or the platform that they prefer? How do you guys, how's that navigation been for you guys?
I like that question too. Yeah. Well, as a creative person, you create with something in, you have something in mind when you start creating, right? So I also, while you are somehow wed to that idea, at the same time, I have learned to disassociate myself when need be, because translation from one medium to the other requires changes. So we'll have to let go of some things. So I think I've been in this process with Rakshak and Caravan and Village now. So I think I learned to live with certain things, So, I don't I don't have a strong opinion when it comes to, changes, because I know with the platform or the director, they're looking for changes. I know there is a rationale because I take their expertise, right? But I also make sure that if there is something, I have a valid point, I express it and say, hey, I think it would be nice to have it. I come more of a suggestive, not as a prescriptive. So that is where I come from.
Anything you'd want to add on this, Vivek, or you completely agree with this?
No, I think Ashwin rightly said we are pretty flexible as long as the core idea that we started off in terms of the comic book material is retained. We understand there are certain things we added, certain things that will be deleted when it is adapted to a certain medium. So we are pretty flexible on that as long as the core element remains the same.
Okay, great. So I just have two small things to ask you guys before I let you go. First up, for a lot of people who get to see this, they would want to know where they can buy the comics and how do they get access to it. Aswin, so how does someone go about getting all the comics from Yali Library?
Yes, YaliDreamCreations.com is also an e-com store. So Shamik's dad is handling the shipping. And, he does it from Calcutta. That's how we've been doing it. I know. Maybe next year we may want to bring it to Mumbai and have a warehouse here and do it. But owing to pandemic, he doesn't want to ship out books, so we are temporarily closed our e-com portion of the website. We have said, for more inquiries, you can just get in touch with us. And also on our homepage, we are asking people if they could read it digitally. We are on Comixology.
Okay.
And I think there's in India, we are on Readware. And if somebody wants to have a physical book, they can order it on Amazon. Okay. Amazon.in.
Perfect. Anything that you would want for people who want to pitch you books and stories now? How about that? How should they go about that?
We are open more than ever for new ideas, new writers. They can come. It can be in genres is no bar, right? But again, we would like the superheroes and horror and fantasy, more pop culture in taste. But then good story is a good story. So they can and they can reach out to us. Contact at YaliDreamCreations.com. We have a contact form on our website. They can reach out to us. And if somebody wants to reach out to me directly, they can reach out to Asvin at YaliDreamCreations.com. And my name is spelled ASVIN.
Great. And they can also reach out to you through your social media channels, right?
Yes, of course.
Great. So thank you both for joining me. I can tell you for sure, everyone who's into comics in India has their fingers crossed and wishing you both very well, because you guys have broken the ceiling and we're looking forward to the projects. And with your success, everyone else can then, look forward to, building it up as well. And once someone starts doing well in the community, you wish them well and you want them to do well so that everyone can grow along. So congratulations on the success so far and best of luck. And all of us are looking forward to watching Rakshak and also figuring out who's going to play him. And also the songs, I'm sure there will be some because it's a Bollywood movie. That should be very interesting. So lots of interesting things there. I think probably once the project is going to come out, I'll reconnect with you guys and you'll have gone through the entire arc of that journey, and it'll be very interesting to see what you guys experienced and learned and, what people should look forward to.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Jatin, for having us here.
Thank you. And that was Asvin and Vivek from Yali DreamWorks, the offshoot of Yali Dream Creations, one of the leading comic book publishing companies in India that have successfully pitched and sold rights to their stories and characters for live action adaptations. You can get more information on the company and their books on the social media handles that we've tagged for them, but you can also check out their website, yalidreamcreations.com. And both of them are fairly active on social media, so you can certainly reach out to them directly. This was really insightful for us. I hope it was insightful for you as well. So thank you for joining us for the panel, Bringing Comics to Life. And this is the Comic Con India Pop Culture Forum 2020, the digital edition, brought to you by Maruti Suzuki Arena. I hope you stay home and stay safe, and we'll see you soon at a Comic Con.
The new Vitara Brezza with a powerful 1.5-litre petrol engine.
Wow! Congrats, Papa! Yara, see? I also want stars.
Wishes are like little stars drifting away into the sky. I'll make you smile. I'll make you shine. Your every
Stars!
See every desire come true with the new Desire.